Hello everyone, it's Dio from Firm But Fair Gaming, bringing you another Diablo 3 video. Welcome everybody to another Season 25 video here today, and we are taking a look at the Crusader, and we are focusing on, or looking at the build for the Akkhan Invoker Thorns build. So basically how this works is we're going to be using bombardments and thorn damage in order to clear our way through the rift. So we have a few different sets that we're using here. So we got Akkhan, obviously, and then we have Invoker, then we got our main hand offhand combination here for Norvald's Fervor, and then we have the Captain Crimson. So we have a few different sets in play. Basically the way this works, or the bonuses rather, for Akkhan, we're going to reduce the cost of abilities by 50% while Akkhan's champion is active. We're going to reduce the cooldown of Akkhan's champion, and while Akkhan's champion is active, we deal 2000% increased damage and take 50% less. So we're going to be able to kill while we're in Akkhan's, and basically when we're not in Akkhan's, our job is to survive. For the Invoker set, Thorns of the Invoker, our Thorns damage now hits all enemies in a 15-yard radius, and each time you hit an enemy with Punish, slash or block attack, your Thorns is increased by 90% for 2 seconds, and then this effect stacks up to 10 times. So basically, because one of our abilities is going to be Punish, we're going to be stacking it through that. And then additionally for the Norvald's Fervor, so whenever we come off our steed, so whenever we come over here, we deal more damage. So we get, we deal 400% increased damage while using steed and for 5 seconds after. So once we come out of that, we're going to be using our cooldowns to line up and deal some big damage coming out of that. And so that's kind of how it works. Basically, while Akkhan's is up, we're going to be dealing damage, and the bombardments are going to be falling due to some of the items that we have. And when we're not in Akkhan's, our job is just to survive until it's back up again, and then we keep going and progress. So let's take a look at the items that we need for this. So for the items, basically, we're going to be wearing 5-piece Akkhans. So for that, the most common items that we're going to be using is the helmet, the chest, the gloves, the legs, and the neck. And then for the Invoker, the most common 2 pieces are the shoulders and the bracers. And so you can interchange those as you need to in order to get the 2 and the 5-piece. But the most common variation is to have the shoulders and bracers for the Invokers, and then everything else is Akkhans. And then we have Captain Crimson. So of course, Captain Crimson set is going to cover our belt and our boots, and basically going to give us more cooldown reduction and resource cost reduction. And then in turn, our damage is increased by our percent of cooldown reduction, and our damage taken is reduced by our percent of cost reduction. For our jewelry, we're going to be using the Convention of Elements. So obviously, people are quite familiar with this. So basically we gain increased damage to a single element, and it rotates through the various ones. So as you can see here, we have Holy, and then it goes Lightning, and then there's other ones like Cold, Fire, Physical, that sort of thing. And whenever we go into our certain element, that's when the most damage is going to be dealt. Bombardment, which is this spell, or this is built on, is Physical. So we want to be rolling physical damage. The other ring that we want here is the Justice Lantern. So basically we get damage reduction equal to our block chance. So this adds survivability. And also when we block based on our Invokers, we have a chance to increase our stack. So that's why we want to use that. And then for our Fervor set, as previously mentioned, we get our steed charge. And then when we come out, we get the 400% increased damage for 5 seconds after. So those are the items that we're going to use for the build. In our cube, we are going to be using the Mortal Drama. How about I go down here just so that people can see what it looks like. So there's a Mortal Drama. So double the number of bombardments impacts, and bombardment deals 500% increased damage. Our belt is Belt of the Trove. Every 4 seconds, bombardment is going to be called down. And so bombardment deals 500% increased damage. So that's where that's coming from. And then for the ring, obviously we are wearing the Ring of Royal Grandeur. So we can have one of each, less of each set. So we can get more set bonuses on our character. For the gems that we need for this set, so in our equipment here, so our chest and legs, we are going to rock resist all because we're strength-based characters, so we're going to have all the armor we need just based off that, and we're kind of weak versus the elements, so we want to have our resist all. So this is just to add some survivability. In the lower levels, you might get away with having strength in here, but ultimately when you're pushing high keys, you're going to want to have, high rifts, you're going to want to have the resist all in here. So, and then for our helmet, for our Prime Evil Soul Shards, we're going to be using the Sliver of Terror. So, of course, this is going to, our cooldowns are increased. For each skill on cooldown, we deal more damage. So basically, when we're calling in our bombardments during our physical, we want as many skills on cooldown as possible to amplify that damage. And for me personally, I want a strength roll on that and the plus life. That's what I want for this. So that's where I'm prioritizing there. And for our weapon, we are using the Remnant of Pain. So ideally, I would like to have physical on here. So instead I get plus damage, fire, crit, and then damage versus elites. I just haven't got a physical one yet. So that is what I'll be trying to get now, because I want to be stacking physical damage, because that's what the bombardment damage is physical. So that's what I want to stack. For our legendary gems, we are going to be using Stricken. So this, of course, is each attack you make against an enemy increases the damage it receives from your attacks. So we want to use that. And then we're going to be using Bane of the Trap, so increased damage against enemies that are affected by control impairing effects. And of course, it has a built-in aura that has that control impairing effect on them to make them take more damage. And then lastly, we're going to be using Boyarsky's Chip, which just adds thorns damage, and it also taunts the first enemy hit by your primary skills for 2 seconds. So basically this gives us more thorns, which is going to amplify our damage as well. For the skills that we're going to use in this build, we're going to be using Punish with Celerity. Oh my goodness, I'm butchering that word. But anyway, so when we block with Hardened Senses active, you gain increased attack speed. So this is going to help us stack our Stricken. Our next skill is, of course, our bombardment. So this is our damage that we're going to be dealing throughout the dungeon. So we call an assault from afar, raining spears of burning pitch onto enemies around us, dealing 28-50% damage to all enemies. And then we're going to have barrels of spikes. So in place of the burning spears, barrels of spikes are hurled. Damage of each barrel is increased by 200% of your thorns. So it's just the extra damage, and this is why we want thorns, to stack that damage and amplify it. Then we're going to have reflective iron skin with reflective skin. So we're going to turn our skin into iron, absorbing 50% of damage, and as well, while active, your thorns is increased by 300%. So basically what we want to do is when we go to call in our bombardment, we want to make sure that iron skin is active so that our thorns is amplified, which then will amplify our bombardment. So because also we're going to be using the Belt of Trolls, every 4 seconds there's going to be a bombardment, but when we can actually call it ourselves. So what we want to do is we want to be in physical, and we want to have iron skin up, and then we want to be in accurates, and then we also want to call in bombardment. And that's when that will be the best, or our biggest damage potential is during that window. The next ability here is we have the shield glare. So this is with divine verdict. So we're just going to blind everything in front of us and takes 20% more damage. So obviously we want to do that in advance of our bombardment as well. And then steed charge. So this mounts our horse. So we ride around and then we get that 400% increased damage. And also we're rocking rejuvenation on here. So we heal for 15% of our max life whenever we get on our horse. Because it just adds our survivability, and it's extra helpful when Accurats is down and we're a little bit more vulnerable. Then lastly, we have Accurats Champions. So we explode with power, increasing our damage by 35% and increasing our wrath regeneration. We gain more armor, and also the first time we take fatal damage, it's kind of like a cheat death. We're healed back to full health. And then we want to keep this up as often as possible, because outside of this window, we are pretty squishy. For our passives, we have Heavenly Strength, so we can equip our two-hander there. Then we have Lord Commander. Our steed charge is reduced by 25%, and same with bombardment by 35%. Iron Maiden increases our thorns by 50%, which is going to build into our bombardment damage. And then Hold Your Ground. We can't dodge, but our block chance is increased by 30%, which is helpful with our build because it's going to help us increase our thorn stack as well. So that is the combinations of skills that we want to have on this build. So I just wanted to go through the rotation for this build. I went through it a little bit during the skills, but I thought I'd just specify now kind of what you want to do. So basically we're watching our conventional elements. Our DPS window, our big damage window, is during physical. So it follows the lightning. So here's our lightning, and then after this we're going to go into physical because our thorns is physical. So what we want to do is we want to be in Akkrats, obviously, and we're going to want to be, in the meantime, while waiting for physical, we're going to be attacking and building our thorn stacks and our stricken. And then as we're going into the lightning, I'll do it on the next round, we're going to want to jump into our steed, come out of steed, we're going to want to blind, pop the iron skin, and call down our bombardment, and that'll be our maximum damage. So here I'm going to jump into this, we're in holy, now we're in lightning, going to ride around, come out, going to blind, pop the iron skin, call down the bombardment, and that is our amplified damage. That'll be our biggest damage ability is during that window. Obviously, as we're running around and we're fighting outside of our bombardment, because the cooldown's a little bit long, due to the belt of troll, bombardments will be falling every 4 seconds. So while possible, if you can get your cooldowns to line up again, bombardment's kind of long, so basically like every other cycle through your ring of convention of elements, you'll be able to do the bombardment, and then on the off one you might be able to get the iron skin in. If your cooldown is high enough, it might be up again just for the automatic 4-second fall of bombardment to benefit from that. Otherwise you're just basically focusing on trying to get it to line up on every other cycle so that you can amplify your damage as best as possible. For our stat priority, because this is a Thorns specific build, our number one priority is going to be getting Thorns on all of our pieces. So as you can see here, the secondary for my shoulders is, the second one is plus 5,491 Thorns damage. We want to get Thorns on as much of our gear as possible. This is just a starter set for me that I've started the build. So like I don't have it on my helmet, I don't have it on my neck or my chest. I have some on my bracers, my gloves. So basically there's a lot of pieces where I'm missing it. So on my character sheet under defense, you can see Thorns. I have 256,000. I would like that to be much higher. So the number one priority is we want to have Thorns on all of our gear. And then aside from that, obviously for our helmet, we would like, excuse me, we would like strength, vitality, and critical hit damage. Critical hit chance, sorry. Then for shoulders, we would like strength, vitality. You'd ideally want cooldown reduction here because you want as low as cooldown as possible. Then we have bombardment damage. For our neck, we would ideally want physical damage, critical hit chance, and cooldown reduction. Chest, strength, vitality, and bombardment. Bracers, physical, strength, vitality, critical hit. Gloves, we want strength, cooldown reduction, attack speed so we can stack our stricken, and then critical hit chance. Our bracers, we want strength, vitality, resist all, and armor. So this is a survivability slot. Our pants, we want strength, vitality, and you can either go armor here, you might be able to get resist all. I went with regen just to help because I found I needed a little bit because I had armor on here. So I thought regen was a little bit more useful because as a strength-based class, I already have as much armor as I'll need. For our rings, this is actually a really good roll on this ring. I wish it was ancient, but I got critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and cooldown reduction with a good unique modifier. And for the other ring, kind of the same thing. So on here, ideally, if I could have, on the Justice Lantern, I would have wanted strength, critical hit chance, chance to block, and cooldown reduction. For our boots, we would want strength, vitality, resist all, and either move speed or life regen. And for our weapon, ideally, usually you can only get the 2 properties here. So I plus damage, cooldown reduction, and strength. Ideally, if I could get a third one, I might want area damage. And then for our shield, we want strength, hit chance, cooldown reduction, and then bombardment if possible. But that is so hard to get. So I would probably prefer strength, vitality, critical hit chance, and cooldown. On this one, I was messing around with it and modified to put thorns on it just because I didn't have thorns. It's actually quite hard to get the very perfect shield. So take what you can get. If you can get 2 or 3 good properties, call that a win. Just take what you can get, especially if it's ancient. Getting the additional, trying to find the best of the best, like the premium shield, is going to be so hard. So that is the item or the stat priority that I would advise to try to get for this build. So the last thing I wanted to touch on before I conclude this video is the alternate build. So there is an alternate build that removes the Invoker, Thorns of the Invoker set, and that would be to wear the Augild's Authority. So this, of course, increases your damage against elites and reduces the damage taken by elites. So it is an elite hunter build. So what some builds have done is they are wearing that in place of the Thorns of the Invoker. And then instead of the Justice Lantern, then they are using Stone of Jordan, which its unique thing is each of your elemental damage bonus is equal to your highest statical bonus to elemental bonus to the skill. And what that can do is, because, for example, this has 15% fire, it then would add to my fire damage here. And basically it then makes all of the bonuses equal. So here I have, what do I have here? Fire is my highest at 21. So then it would, of course, if I was wearing this, let me just put this on. Now my fire is 36, but it also makes the physical 36. So that is helpful. Like in instance, if I rolled this to be fire as well, then that would be like 53% instead. And then it basically bolsters your convention of elements. So that is what some builds are doing by wearing Augild's over Thorns of the Invoker. So this concludes the video. So I hope you have enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know below. This is the top pushing build on the leaderboards in Season 25 for Crusader. It is a little challenging to play. You can be a little bit squishy at the higher levels outside of your Akkhan's champion. So you want to stack as high cooldown as possible. So yeah, if you have any questions, please let us know. Also, we appreciate any shares and likes and subscribes. So we appreciate making these videos for you guys, and we appreciate all the action that you guys give us. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Good luck pushing out there. Hope you're enjoying Season 25, and we'll catch you at our next one.